Howdy y'all, this is Dwight and welcome back to my channel. Well, in my previous video I asked what y'all would like to see for my next build series, whether it be a basic pocket knife or this 2-blade trapper that I'm wanting to attempt. And everyone in the comments asked for the 2-blade trapper. So I'm going to attempt to show how I'm going about doing this. Of course, first of all, I'm definitely not meaning this to be a tutorial, because I've made a few 2-bladed knives and they turned out decent, but nothing spectacular. So this is just kind of where my skill set is at this point in time. Maybe you can learn something from my mistakes or learn something that I did right. Because to be quite honest with you, you might say I'm the shade tree mechanic of building pocket knives at times. I just dive right in, right or wrong, and I go for it, which is how I've learned a lot of stuff. So, but anyhow, not sure how far I'll get on this particular video. I've been dealing with some internal bleeding in one of my elbows, so that might slow me down at some point. So we'll see how far we get. But first thing we need to do is figure out where the pivot hole is going to need to be. Okay, of course I've already got the handle traced and cut out, as well as the trapper blade. Of course I have the secondary blade as well. I don't know if I mentioned or not, but this drawing came from a screenshot. I took a screenshot of this knife, zoomed it into the size I wanted, and then traced this directly off of my phone. So I'm attempting to make this knife from the screenshot, which is why we don't have the pivot location or the end pin location. Now the end pin location for me is easy. I'm eyeball it, and I'm just going to put it basically in the center of the handle, right there, because I ain't going to be using an end cap, especially on this build, being the first build. So I want it to look nice. I want it to look centered, and I just eyeballed that. Now this, fair warning, is how I do stuff. I eyeball stuff. So I'm not going to be measuring this. I ain't going to be saying use this calculation to figure out where your pivot pin needs to be. Nothing like that. The main thing for me is you don't want your tang square to end up too small for your blade size or your handle size. You lose stability whenever you have your tang square disproportionately smaller than the handle and blade. That's my opinion. And generally speaking, you can finagle it sometimes and get your pivot pin to be dead center. But generally speaking, you want it to be offset upwards just a little bit. Okay, now first off, I'm going to take a look at it in the half stop position, because I do not want the spine of my blade hanging off into space, because this is not meant to be a flush joint. A flush joint, of course, you're going to have that. I want it to be lined up to where it comes down and flows. So I know that somewheres along this axis is where I want the pivot hole inset. Now, I line up the spines, and if we look, we can see the flow of the handle does not meet the flow of the cutting edge. Now this is just my personal preference. I want the inside of the handle to flow right along with the cutting edge. I don't like it stepped. I mean, a lot of traditional knives are like that. But at least for the main blade, in my opinion, again, I like it to flow. So therefore, I'm going to move that until I see that it flows. So there we go. And that means this is going to be in this area right here. So now let's take a look at the half stop position again. That's about right, because this spine is going to end up being out just a little bit. So, but that's just me eyeballing it, my way of thinking, finding my pivot pin. And as we can see, it's not dead center. It is offset to the inside of the handle just a little bit. So I'm going to be center punching into our liner material now. Okay, I got this pulled out, and I'm just going to be doing one liner at this point. Going to line that up with my cross hatch best I can. I ain't going real heavy. Okay, I'm going to actually hold this here. Situate my pattern once again, and I'm going to hold it. And I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to hit this end one. Right there. And again, I don't need to weld on it. This is brass, so it marks really easily. So now I have marked my pivot hole as well as the end hole. And yes, I held it carefully. That way I missed that little ugly spot. So now let's drill those holes. Okay, and next I'm going to want to give just a basic shape to this liner material. And basic, because obviously I ain't going to be able to line these holes up just 100%. Which I have a little bit to go by. But I'm going to use a blue Sharpie. And let me see where I'm at. Make sure we're gonna get as close as I can. And I'm just going to color around it. Right now I'm not looking for exact, just wanting to be in the ballpark. There we go. Like I said, it ain't perfect. I don't want it to be perfect yet. I just need to get it in the ballpark. Okay, got the liner with a basic shape. I left it just a little bit oversized, but we can see that the pivot hole is slightly off center to the inside of the handle. Which I left the spine part a little oversized, so that might center itself up just a little bit more as the build goes on, but we will see how that turns out. The next thing I'm going to be doing is getting started on the back spring. Now obviously this is just a chunk of metal now, so I've got it plenty oversized to where I can make it from scratch. I'm going to drill the end hole there first, and before I do that, I'm going to make sure I leave plenty of material proud along the spine. I'm going to get it fairly close here to the butt end. And on the inside we can see well over halfway up in the liner and right next to the pivot hole, so we know we got plenty of material on the inside. So I'm actually going to just put this over here on the drill press and hold it and drill the hole. Okay, and next I'm going to go ahead and get the pivot hole drilled and the main blade, trapper blade. So I'm going to lay this pattern on it, and basically I'm going to line up where I threw in the approximate spot for my sharpening tool. And as we can see, I have plenty of material along the spine and the cutting edge to shape this blade basically however I want it. But this here is going to allow me to center punch through the tang square there to get myself a good idea of where I need to drill at. And of course, obviously, I have plenty of extra around the tang square as well. And there we go. Okay, I pinned through the pivot hole, and as we can see, I'm proud along the spine by just a little bit, and of course I'm really proud along where the cutting edge is, so plenty of room for shaping on that. And of course, if we look on the inside, the tang square, that is way oversized as well, so I have plenty of room to get things shaped how I want to get them shaped. So that is the very beginning stages, getting some basic shapes started for this two-blade trapper project. Of course, have the liner, basic shape, and got the back spring scribed around and hole drilled, as well as the pivot hole drilled in the blade, and ready for me to basically freehand the shape I want onto it. And that will be what I'll be starting in the next video. This is about all I'll be able to do for today, so I do appreciate everyone stopping by and watching. And until y'all come back for the next video, y'all take care.